Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with episode 79 of our Reddit series. This one's going to be a bit more entitled parents, and I know you're going to love this one. It's kind of crazy that this video actually has an intro. I mean, who's dumb enough to forget to put an intro in a video? Apparently me, but at least this one's actually got one, right? Anyway, enough about my stupidity. Don't forget to sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. As I mentioned in previous posts, I used to be a supervisor for public parks in charge of lifeguard staff and pool maintenance. I don't know why I didn't think of this one as my first or second post, but in my opinion, it's pure gold. So around 2000-ish, I got a series of complaints from patrons who were all in the same family, claiming that they'd all got sick after going to one of my pools last summer. I do what I usually do in those situations and verify the water quality monitoring systems that we have in place. I go back for the logs for the period mentioned in the complaints, laugh it off, and then go back to work. A few weeks later, and another set of complaints, this time stating that the health conditions had worsened, that they had water samples from the facilities analysed by an independent lab, and stated that I didn't respond to the first set of complaints. After the summer season ended, probably around late October, I get a call from the city's lawyer and we are being sued by the family. The results from the lab came in and our pool water was full of E. coli bacteria and other nasty bugs. The family wants a huge cash settlement and the lawyer asks if it's worth going to court and if we had a solid defense. I tell the lawyer that we can go to court and that if we lose, I'll have my own private insurance pay the amount that we would end up having to pay, as well as any fines that might come from the government. The lawyer knows me and I had to deal with other situations with her in the past. She knows how I work and knows we have nothing to worry about just from my tone of voice. But I explain the whole situation and she laughs, writes up a countersuit, but just for legal fees. Thinking back, I should have only said, "Don't worry, I got this." I gather all the documentation I have, including the different procedure manuals that I wrote, reports my team have written, complaints we received, etc. It's a big file, but I'm excited. Our court date arrives and I can barely hold back my smile and fear that the judge will be angered that I don't take the proceedings seriously. The family goes in, explains that they all got sick, which is 4 adults, 6 kids and 2 toddlers, that they lost days, weeks or months of work, that they couldn't wait for the public health system because I'm in Canada, so they decided to pay to go to private clinics for treatment. They had experts explain the health issues that the family had and probable cause for such problems. They had the laboratory they hired explain how the water analysis was done and everything checked out for the family. Their story actually made sense. They were suing for multiple millions, most of that amount in punitive damage. We were a city after all, and we put the safety of our citizens in peril. Then I was called to testify by the lawyer's family. I was asked what our water analysis procedure was, and I explained that our systems constantly recorded the water's quality as it goes through the filtration system, which is every minute the different parameters are recorded, including chlorine levels, water temperature, pH levels, alkaline, and about 10 other chemical markers for a total of 15 readings. I explained that our staff take manual measurements of 3 chemicals as well as water temperature every 2 hours. I also explained that we take turbidity readings once a week and bacterial measurements every 2 weeks. I explain our procedure when any of the measurements doesn't respect what the law requires, and also explain that we go beyond what the law asks for most, if not all measures. Then I am asked if my staff took the measurements at the pool because the family claimed that nobody ever checked the water quality. I answered that my team did not in fact take any measurements. I was asked if our automated system was properly calibrated according to the manufacturer's schedule, and I confirmed that it was not, holding back laughter. Basically, I agree to everything that the family lawyer says. Then it comes our lawyer's turn to ask me questions. I am first asked if I'd ever heard about the family, and I produced documentation about the problems that they had caused in my other pools in the past 2 years, as well as the number of times that they were kicked out of the facility and the 3 times that we needed police intervention to have them removed. I am then asked to produce the water quality for every other basin that I'm responsible for. I provide the 40+ binders containing the lab results that we get every other week, water analysis forms filled in by my staff, and the water analysis documents done by our automated system. I then produce time cards for every facility except for the one that was mentioned in a lawsuit. I produce document after document, answer question after question, then comes the big one. The judge is very interested by that one also. The city lawyer says to me, "You've proven how diligently you take care of every basin under your responsibility, and how well you log all the data that you receive from each facility. You obviously take pride in your work and the quality of your services offered, as well as the health of the community. How is it then that you are unable to provide any document, time card, report, or complaints other than the family for the period in question?" So I tell them, well, in 2000 odd, the park and pool were being renovated. They were not open to the public and the pool had no water in it. The pool was basically a big hole in the ground for the whole summer. We only filled it for 2 days and it was still closed to the public when we tested the new filtration system. The experts brought in by the family that was still there turned bright red in anger, the judge was clearly unhappy, the family claimed that they had identified the wrong park, but the lawyer was already packing up his things and the judge wouldn't hear it. The city then got their legal fees paid for. Were they an entitled family trying to get back at the city for being kicked out of the pool a couple of times? Were they freeloaders looking for an easy payday? I can't say. All I know is there is now a big mark next to their name in our court system for attempted fraud. I hope the courts went back in their files and similar cases involving that family were reopened. For real though, I need more of these entitled parent stories where people actually get convicted of crimes or get in trouble with the law for the crappy things that they do to just normal human beings. Like, if you're going to attempt to commit fraud, at least be smart about it and check to see if the place that you're actually committing fraud against was open during that time period. Like, do you have any kind of brains whatsoever? Wait, that's a silly question. They're an entitled parent, so obviously not. When I was first married, money wasn't that easy to come by. I had a form of leukemia that took up most of our money, and due to this, we couldn't just spend money like we wanted to. God bless my husband for being such a sweetheart. We were only in our early 20s and he still pushed through this for us. December 23rd is my mother's birthday. She is an awful person. She tried to get me pregnant at 14 because she wanted more money from the state. That's an entirely different story that I'll post on here if people ask. As this was 20 years ago, we didn't really have the same type of cell phones that we have today. So I didn't know until I got home from treatment that my mum had called me multiple times. 3 minutes later, and yes I counted, she shows up at the door. She asks for her money and both of us are confused, of course. She actually wants her birthday money, which I've never given to her before. She wants $608, that exact amount. When I told her no, that we can't afford that, she lost it, screaming at me, calling me a whore and an entitled witch. She gave birth to me, so I should always do what she says. I say to her that I'm an adult and I don't have to listen. I was angry and tired and I just threw up a few minutes ago. This set her off. She grabbed a kitchen knife and ran at me while my husband is trying to hold her back. She stabbed me right between two ribs but didn't pierce any organs, thank God. I don't know what happened in my husband's mind, but he snapped. He broke her arm backwards in rage while screaming something that I don't even think was a human language. He called the police and she was arrested while I was taken to hospital. But surprisingly, that was taken care of by a Domestic Violence Victims Foundation. She got 7 years in prison and I moved out to Louisiana. This morning, I got a call from my sister that she had passed away last night. How she died, I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care. She took her entitlement and almost killed her own daughter because of it. I'm kind of lost for words with this one. Like, this is well and truly, like by an absolute long shot, the worst story that I have heard on Entitled Parents so far. I know I've said that a lot recently, but this just seems to be getting worse and worse, and it's really sad to think that our entitled parents are now turning into murderers or attempted murderers. I think the 7 years in prison she got was well and truly deserved, and thank goodness that this person didn't have to deal with her anymore. When I was really little, my mother and I were passengers in a car accident. The driver of the other car was drunk and we were awarded some compensation for our injuries and my trauma. Because I was a minor, my portion of the money was secured in a trust fund until I turned 18. Just before my 18th birthday, I was sent the paperwork needed to transfer the trust into my account and a statement of all the activity on it. I'd already been in no contact with my mother for about 5 years at this point. Apart from the usual fees, there were a couple of withdrawals that were a total surprise. The largest one was for $1,000 for educational expenses and removed just before the last Christmas I lived with my mother and I was only 7. $1,000 was a lot of money in 1991 and it was a fair chunk of the trust fund at the time. I know damn well I didn't have $1,000 in educational expenses in 91, but I remember that Christmas very clearly. My mother was so excited because we had a lot of money for Christmas for once and her boyfriend was bringing his 2 daughters to spend the holiday with us. Well, ahead of time, she asked me to write out my Christmas list. She told me to go crazy and write everything that my heart desired because money wasn't an issue this year. I can't remember everything I wrote down, but the only thing I really cared about was the My Little Pony bride. I wanted that thing so bad it hurt, and she knew it because I talked about it incessantly. Christmas morning came and all the kids tumble out to the lounge room to see a massive pile of presents next to the tree. They start getting handed out and I notice that I haven't got one yet. I'm a well-mannered kid and their guest, so I just play along, confident that my turn is coming. I start to notice many of their presents were things I'd asked for on my Christmas list, including pony brides. The pile of presents dwindles to nothing and I'm the only person in the whole house who hasn't gotten a single present. Everyone else had tons of them, and I'm still totally confident that this is just for effect when my mother says, "Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. Your presents are behind the tree." I'm certain at this point that I'm about to be the happiest kid ever. I run to that tree and look everywhere under it, finally coming up with 2 very small gifts. Okay, so I'm not getting a pony bride, I realize, but I try to look excited anyway. I open my gifts and there's a couple of those cheap kids books that they used to sell at the supermarket, and a cheap fake pony that looked more like a donkey. I was gutted inside. This was already the worst Christmas of my life, and the day I realized just how much my mother really hated me. Finding out that she stole from me to fund this cruel act just made me feel so much better about having cut contact with her. Man, what a horrible story. I just couldn't imagine having a mother who treats their own kid like absolute crap, neglects their needs, and honestly, just does horrible things to their kids for their own sick needs. It sucks, but I'm really glad this person cut contact with their mum as well, because it sounds like they probably had a better life because of it. So this one's the other story from the person whose mum tried to murder them. They put it up not too long ago as well, so I hope you guys like it. I came home from school and there's this man, mid-20s, sitting there. My mum tells me to sit down, so I do. She says that she wants a grandbaby now, so she can get more smokes, which were her words. She pointed at the man beside her, who is now looking terrified. He didn't know I was 14, nor that he was there to practically get me pregnant for food stamps. I don't want to piss her off, so I say, no ma'am, this is really dumb. She, in her infinite wisdom, hated this. She hated me talking back. She goes off the offensive, screaming how she created me and I'm a child and I will do what she says. The poor guy is terrified even more now, as he's in a strange woman's house. He's the son of one of her friends, but doesn't know her directly. She's screaming and there's a 14-year-old girl talking back to her, as I rarely scream because I'm a quiet person. He runs and calls the police on my neighbor's phone. 15 minutes later, they get there and try to calm her down. This does not work at all. She screams at them that she's my mother and they cannot tell her how to be a parent. She slaps the cop hard. She goes down to the floor quick. Long story short, after that, I go and live with my dad until I turn 18 and get married. She gets off on some plea deal and gets 2 years and a bunch of community service. The court tried to get me to return to her at 17, which instead of that, I got emancipated. I was working at that point and engaged. I only saw her a handful of times after this instance. Thank the good Lord. My goodness, after reading 2 stories from this lady, her mother sounds like a real piece of work. A lot of the entitled parent stories we read don't really revolve around the post as parents, so it's good to see people feeling comfortable enough to actually share these types of stories. But yeah, like I said last time, glad you got away and glad you don't have to deal with her anymore. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm just going to take a second to plug a couple of my social medias, including our Discord server. I do have a Twitter and an Instagram if you want to follow me on both of those. They are both at Bumfris, and feel free to send me a message and I'll do my best to respond. I also just want to take a second to say thank you so much for all the love lately, all of the comments, the likes, the subscribers, just the fact that you guys tune in and watch my videos every day. It really does make my day. Every single one of you is the backbone of this channel and I really cannot express how much I appreciate that. Without you guys, this channel would be nothing, and I love making these videos for you guys and I love the fact that you enjoy them. So on that note, I will wrap things up for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to take a second again to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Entitled Parents. Bye.